I'm talking with my buddy last night, and he says some stupid stuff, right? Most of the time, every word that comes out of his mouth, I question his existence and why he was ever thinking that in the first place, right? he, he will say some of the dumbest things that you've ever heard. I'm talking like you're taken aback for multiple days on some of the things, right? But he said something really smart last night, and he must have heard it from someone else because there's no way that he could muster this up himself. But if he did, good on him. I have to say that intro because if I ever show him this video, I don't want him to take this as a compliment outright because, you gotta roughen up the edges a little bit, right? Regardless, he said, we were in conversation. I was talking about all the things that I was trying to get done, and he helps me out a lot with thinking through these things, right? He's a good voice of reason, right? Because most of my ideas are a little bit crazy, and he'll sometimes say like, hey, are you sure about that? Which is good. You need that in a friend. And we're talking through, and I say the different things, and I'm like, I know there's more time in the day. I just need to get better at spending it. And he's like, but are you sure about that? What do you mean? Are you sure that there's more time in the day? That there's, 12, 16, 18 productive hours in a day? Because, when he said that, I started thinking, probably not, There's all these little things that take up the time. And if you have the resources or if you really make the schedule, if you are extremely disciplined, then yes. So there are hours in the day, but not available to someone who has not put any effort towards creating or freeing up those hours during the day. For example, let's say I cook my food, and that takes an hour every day. And then, I have to go to the grocery store. I got to get gas. There's this other thing I got to go do, some errands. Like, there's all these little things, little tasks that add up over time. And by the end of the day, I've spent 4 or 5 hours doing maintenance items when I could have spent that time doing something productive or something on the to-do list. But the maintenance items had to get done. Unless the things on my to-do list are actually making me enough money to where I could replace those maintenance items with, by paying for those maintenance items. For example, buying chicken pre-cooked from Chipotle every single week, meal prepping, or meal prepping from like a Chipotle catering set. That's what I mean by that. Or paying for like a private chef in the upper, extreme of this, or paying to get my clothes cleaned and folded, and all these things. They're little things. They don't really take that much time, but if you are at a point where you can replace those, then you should expect yourself to be able to replace those and do more of the work that you want to do. So, more than that, I think it's required of you to replace those things if you're in a position where you're producing that much value. Because not only, if you're producing that much value to where you could replace those, not only is it productive to add more hours in the day, but you're probably one of the only people with that skill set in your company. Maybe you're the CEO or whatever it is. Okay, so then I'm not there yet. So this is one of those things. There's a spectrum, right? There's a timeline as well that over time, my position on that spectrum will change. I will be able to one day have 18 hours every single day, every waking moment, literally, where I'm being productive in some way because I'll have set up a system. I got to treat it right now like 12 hours, right? At absolute maximum. Great day, I've got 12 hours of productivity in me. And that's if I'm planning it out. I know exactly what I'm going from one step to the next. There's no downtime, and there's no 30-minute, iffy periods where it's like, okay, well, I got to wait for this thing to be done, but I can't start the next thing until this is done. No, it's getting things aligned so that even in those 30-minute periods, you can do something that's quote-unquote productive. For example, instead of, let's say you have an hour and a half time block at the end of your day, and you want to read during this 30 minutes during that time block because you're like, might as well, right? Well, hour and a half is a pretty big chunk of time. If you split it up right in the middle with 30 minutes, you got 30 minutes before, 30 minutes after, probably gonna be scrolling your phone on TikTok or, calling someone, talking chat, or watching something on Netflix, right? Instead, you take that 30-minute time block for the book. That's something you could do at any time, right? Those are the easier things to get done. There's not much friction. You open up the page and you start reading. It's already done for you. Not much mental work. It's like watching a TV show, right? That's why it's a pseudo-productive activity. It's important, but it's not more important than the necessary actions. So then you set up your day with all these time blocks, and let's say for you it's only 9 hours or it's only 6 hours of productivity, whatever it is, because maybe you're at work for 8 hours, then you come home and you've only got 4 hours of productivity to spend on your side thing, whatever that is. That's okay, but those 4 hours you should cherish them, right? Because you're never going to get out of the situation unless you take advantage of those to the absolute maximum that you're able to. Because let's say you only use like an hour every other day to move towards this goal. If it took 1,000 hours to complete this thing, then that would be 2,000 days, because it's 1 hour every other day to complete this goal. Well, then that's like 6 more years of you remaining in the position that you're in. If you don't want to remain in that position, then take the time to understand, where do I want to go? So where do I want to move to? How long is it going to take? How many hours would it take to put into something like this? Let me do a rough calculation in this range. And now I can break it down. Okay, well, if I want to get there in 2 years, it's going to take me 1,000 hours. That's 770 days, something like that. No, that's way wrong. 307, I don't even know, 720, 730. Look, I'm bad at math. Anyways, let's say it's 750 days away and it's 1,000 hours. Then if I spent an hour every single day, I could get it done in 2 years. That's pretty exciting. Well, then, let me move that timeline up. If I put in 2 hours a day and, I could do it twice as fast. I could do it in 1 year, let's say, right? These numbers aren't perfect, but you get the idea, where it's like, break it down into small pieces, or see the whole picture, then break it down into pieces and see how many you could do. What's your maximum capacity that you could add onto your day currently, without interrupting everything else that you're trying to get done. And then move towards it, because then it should be more exciting. And then on top of that, you'll have a higher return on the work. Because if let's say you spend 5 minutes walking every day. Well, you could do higher intensity. So maybe you do 5 minutes of sprinting every day, and that burns more calories, but it's still a little, like a small amount of time in the thing. So then if you put your body, through it for an hour every day of sprinting exercises, or a mixture of that and weightlifting, or whatever it is, right? Then you're more well-rounded. You have a higher return on the activity that you're putting in, and with more time in the game, you're increasing your ability of your output of every hour put in, right? So then the first 5 minutes of walking or sprinting, whatever it is, they'll be good for you, but they won't be great. There's probably an optimal range, let's say 30 minutes a day of running at, zone 3, zone 2 pace. Then as long as you're doing that, that you're using that time optimally. Your return from that time is at its maximum. Here's another thing to think about, is that there's a certain amount of energy to get into the mode and out of the mode, back into your regular life of getting things done, right? That startup time, let's say it's 30 minutes of startup and slow down time for some type of action that you want to do in your day. Well, then if you're only putting 30 minutes towards it every day, that's 30 minutes to get into the mode and 30 minutes, right, for the actual activity. Well, then your startup cost is half. You should try to make that like at most 20%, maybe 10% of the total time. So if it's a 30-minute startup time, then you're looking at 300 minutes, 5 hours in the activity that you're trying to do, right? You got to think about it that way, because time flies, and you'll waste time on maintenance activities and startup cost for activities. So you got to make sure that the priorities are set and that you can do them. For example, I want to do this every single day, and it takes me about 5 minutes to get started, to film a daily thoughts video, right? So I got to sit down, I got to read through my notes and figure out what were some of the ideas that were floating through my head over the past couple of days or today that I could talk about on this video without a script, because that's how I do these things. And so that takes about 5 minutes. I'll find an idea, I'll build it out in my head, I'll try to figure out what points I should hit, keep a list up here, and I'll start checking them off as I go through. Or sometimes, like this one, I'll just start talking on one thing that I heard and see where my mind takes me, which is fun. But this takes about 20 minutes, right? Because I filmed the video for about 15, sometimes it's 10, and the startup is about 5 minutes. And then to finish, it's about 5 minutes because I press post on YouTube and then I have to wait for it to upload. But I can usually go out and do other things while that's happening, right? Even though in the past couple of weeks, I won't lie, I've been watching back my old videos on this channel, and it's fun, right? So it's a balance, right? Life's a balance. But regardless, I know I can do this every single night. It takes 20 minutes. And so then, every night at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, I can do one of these and then schedule them out in advance. And my life won't be taken away by maintenance or startup cost. Now, what would be more effective for this potentially would be if I did like 2 or 3. And that's what usually happens. I might even do that today, where I get in a creative mode, my mind is thinking, and I'm like, all right, time to ramble, time to talk chat. Not actually, but you know what I mean? Like time to see what words come out of my mouth for this video. And because sometimes I do be rambling, but regardless, if I do 2 or 3 in a day, well then there's a little bit less startup cost. It's not huge, but it's just, maybe I'm optimizing the ability to actually follow through on this because, like, for example, when I'm traveling, I can't record one, or I don't want to put that limit on myself. I probably could record one. It's just more difficult to sit down in a public place, record when people are making noise and everything like that in the background. Difficult for me to think with all the distractions, all the people walking past, when I'm in the airport, for example, right? So all this is to say, if you want to have the highest chance that you follow through on this goal, you got to have more time in the goal, more time doing the things that you need to do, only the necessary actions. And then you need to have a system that has a very small amount of startup costs to the amount of actual work that gets done, right? Because it's only the work that gets done that matters. You could throw your jacket on and your shoes and your hat and then your scarf and like all these different things to go dig a hole. But if you need to dig the hole, you don't need all this stuff, right? Maybe if it's cold outside, sure, but like that's not gonna get the hole dug. What's gonna get the hole dug is taking dirt out of the hole. So if you wanna do these things, you gotta do the actual work. That's the only thing that actually matters, right? And these things are obvious. This whole video, you maybe could live your whole life without ever watching it and it would not matter. But I think it would, because we have to restate the obvious things so that we can remember them, so that we can internalize them and be conscious of them and then use them in our day-to-day life. So hopefully this video was not a waste. Hopefully this video is a reminder of what you should be doing. And if you're avoiding the tasks that you should be doing right now, then maybe don't just go right back into it. Try to figure out, how can I make sure that this doesn't happen again? Because it's important that you get back to it today, this once, but at the same time, it's more important, honestly, that you get back to it every single day, more than once, Making that system to where you never question it and you actually enjoy the things that you're doing. You know how many hours it's going to take so you can see the progress as you're building towards this goal that you have in mind. That's all that matters. Yeah, this is a good one. Oh yeah, I look homeless right now because, or that's a terrible thing to say, but like I look terrible right now, let's say, because I've been exhausted this week trying to catch up from the Miami Marathon, and today I'm driving over to the Mississippi Marathon. So this is prime example in my life of I need systems. I need to plan out my days better so that time doesn't fly by and so that I don't bite off more than I can chew during a given week, right? So that I know what to expect and I know how to approach the week with diligence, effort, and focus. So that is that. Why not us?